Hey, what's up, Liron here. Today you're going to learn how to make your watercolors in particular look better online. So whether you want to send them to me for a critique or review, or you want to upload them to Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, etc. Very often you take a picture with your phone of the painting, the physical painting, and it just doesn't end up looking good. It ends up being blurry or being a little skewed or being too yellow, usually too dark. Colors are completely off. So in this video, you'll learn how to fix that. So let me get out of the way like the first most important advice. The best thing you can do is actually scan your painting. If you want to get a result that is most true to life and the easiest to edit and fix if necessary, it's by scanning. 300 dpi is the minimum I recommend, but sometimes that's not an option because either your painting is too big for the scanner or you don't have a scanner, which I haven't had the first couple of years of painting. So I'll show you how to fix them manually using either Photoshop or any other photo editing software. The features I'm going to show you can probably be found in just about any decent one. So we'll get to Photoshop here, and I want to show you how it's going to work. So here is our painting. Now, just to give you an idea, here's what it should look like, right? If it's scanned and looks good. I have tons of car paintings. This one is just a photo I took with my iPhone. Now the light and shadow is pretty good actually here, but still this could look so much better. So let me show you all of the things I'm working on. So to do any of the photo editing, we actually need to have the software know what it's editing. And right now you see some of the desk, you see my MacBook poking through into the picture, you see my X-Acto knife. All of this information is unnecessary because the automatic processes the software is gonna run will take those into consideration. It will ruin the end result. So the first step is actually to cut out everything and just leave the painting. So crop it out. Sometimes you may need to rotate it a bit. I took a decently from above photo, so I don't need to rotate. All I need to do is pretty much cut out everything that is not the painting. Now the next thing I do is fix levels. So you do Control L in Photoshop and you get the levels screen. Now this again, I know the Mac's default photo editing software can do that as well. A lot of other softwares can. GIMP, G-I-M-P is a good alternative to Photoshop. It's very robust, has all the features. It's just a little schlemiel. I don't know how to better say it. It's just a little more, it's not as, like, it's a bit hard to get your bearing at first, but it's actually as robust as Photoshop. So here's the levels screen. You don't need to know too much about it, but just know this plays around with the darker values, this plays around with the lighter values, and this is with the mid values. So for example, right now it's the default, right, or 1 here. If I lower it, it's gonna lighten up the mid values, and if I darken, it's going to darken the mid values. Okay, so what you want to do is two simple things. One is get rid of that tail here. See how the curve ends here? Get rid of everything else is excessive for the most part. Okay, now if it looks too dark, go a bit to the left and figure out the balance that looks good. But here is the most important part. Get rid of this right side tail. That's the thing most of you need to fix in your photos of the paintings. That's the number one thing. Okay, so you do this all the way to where the curve starts. Then you go, okay. Next up, you can do image adjustments, exposure. And if you know exposure, because the photos usually are taken in not too good of light, this is going to increase the exposure, meaning how much light there is. So you have to be a little careful with it because you can very easily overdo it and burn the photo completely. But let's say this is a decent amount of change, right? Now, one more thing you can play around with that I've shown you earlier is this. The mid values. Sometimes they're going to look too dark, too light. This isn't meant to be dark. It's a very light value actually in the original. So I can probably decrease it more, a little to the left, or maybe just a little less. There we go, and it looks much, much better. Now, lastly, one thing you want to make sure is that the color balance is on point. Now, to be honest with you, just playing around with the levels and getting rid of that tail on the right, making it lighter, that's what most people need. But you can take it one step further. Image adjustments, color balance. And what you have here, and this will vary based on the software you use, is shadows, midtones, and highlights. You can play with the color balance of all of these individually for every level. So if we start with the highlights, we're gonna see this is the blue, cyan, this is the red, and you have to find a middle point, right? And you play around with it until it feels right. Same goes for the purple or magenta and green here. This is way too green, this is way too magenta, and the center point's probably around here, right? And yellow blue the center point. You have to find it, so it feels good here. So before and after. Usually what will end up happening, the paintings are too warm, too yellow, too red, and then once you fix the colors, they just look more balanced. Next up is the midtones. We're going to do the same thing, right? So this will edit the mid values. And then for this one as well, looks too green, looks too yellow. Go with your feeling, right? You know, this is too blue, you know, this is too yellow. You just play around with it until you find the right balance. And look at the difference, right? Much cleaner colors, in my opinion. Shadows. There aren't too many shadows, so this is mostly going to affect the slightly darker values and the pencil lines, actually. But you go ahead, you do your best, and look at what it looked like before and after, right? Before and after. So this would be how to edit a photo to make it look just much, much better. Again, when we just opened and cropped it, look at the difference here. The difference in clarity, right, and details. You can just see them a lot better if I even zoom in. You see the difference? So again, just to quickly conclude, levels, and then you can play around a bit with exposure. You can then do the color balance, right? And sometimes you'll play around with hue saturation. I'm going to show you this in the next example. So this is how you do it for this one, right? And you saw the major difference between just taking a photo. Now let me show you this. Here's a photo I took of the pumpkins that you saw me recently painting under my desk in bed light. Now, if you compare this to the scan, they're incomparable, right? So this looks terrible. This looks much better, much cleaner. Now, ideally, you want to take the photo from above, right? That's the best way to get the photo to look good, to look straight, not too close, a little higher, just to make sure it doesn't skew the edges, right? But let's take it to the extreme. So I took a really bad photo here. So let me fix that and show you how close we can get it to the scan. So I'm going to duplicate this layer, and here's what I'm going to do. First, I'm going to rotate it a bit. Then I'm going to crop it as best as I can. But remember, this is really, really skewed, so it's probably not going to be perfect. Now look at what I'm going to do here. I'm going to do Edit, Transform, Perspective. And what this does, it allows you to play around with the perspective, because again, we took it at an angle. So you see it completely straightens it out. And then what I'm going to do is Edit, Transform. I just want to show you how much you can do here. And we're going to do Distort, I believe. And we're going to push it because I took it at an angle, it was squeezed. So now I straightened it out. And we're going to do the same thing we did earlier. We're going to crop out the edges as best as we can. Again, there's no substitute to scanning. This is the next best option. And again, when you take the photo, make sure to take it from above as straight as you can so you don't have to work hard later on. Now, levels, okay? We're going to get rid of the unnecessary darkness. So I'm going to make the lights a little lighter, right? So there's a better sense of like sun. Darks I don't need to play with, but I actually need to play with the mid values. If anything, get them a little lighter because they're way too dark. And this is what happens with when you take a bad photo, bad light, it tends to increase the contrast unnecessarily. Okay, so there we go. Look at the before, after, right? And you can continue playing with it until it looks good. And then one more thing you would want to do is image adjustments, vibrance. So I like to do vibrance because saturation really skews the colors. So what you want to do is vibrance. You can go almost all the way and nothing's going to happen and it will look good. And then you can add a bit of saturation if you're interested. I don't think it's necessary. And lastly, if you want to add a bit more lightness, you go with the exposure and you can do this kind of a thing, right? But very gentle once again. Now look at the before and after. You've seen me do this in front of your face. So here's the scan. Of course, the scan will always look the best. If we zoom in, you can get the most details here. If I zoom in here, I can barely get any details because I took the picture more from afar, right? But still, considering the way this looked when we just got started, right? Look at this versus that, right? Usually most of the photos I get to review look like this, if anything. So I'm showing you how to make them wow, right? And if you're going to share your photos on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Pinterest, whatever, you really want to show them the best you can. That's how you do it. Now, I would do the extra mile, and I'll work around the border here. You see, like this and like that. I'm selecting the areas, and look at what I'm going to do here. I'm simply going to fill them in with white paint, see, like that, just to give it a straight border, right? Here's what it was before that and after. See? So you can do so much that way. So the next time you maybe send me a painting to review or anything like that, just know that even if you took a photo and your phone isn't the best, you can actually get it to look quite good. Again, just have to show you a reminder. This was the original photo. You just cannot compare the two. Okay? So I hope that was helpful, and I hope now you can upload your paintings, make them digital, and showcase them better. This is, I think, really, really important to showcase your work. I hope you found this video helpful, and check out the Frustration-Free Watercolor course if you're struggling with watercolor and you can't let go of rigidity and paint more loosely. And if you haven't checked it out, I would greatly, greatly appreciate it. And of course, I do want to take this opportunity to thank anyone and everyone who supports me over on Patreon. You make it possible for me to make tons of free videos like this, which is great, great fun. Much appreciated. And I will see you in the next video. Until then, take care.